We are having our last ECON committee session for this budget, and we're gonna now start on the conference center NDA. Mr. Bilal, can you please kick us off?
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, committee members. Two, hopefully, brief items here with the Conference Center NDA and this Burtonsville Shopping Center amendment. As for the Conference Center NDA, the county executive is recommending $566,972 for FY25. And I'll give some background, which will explain the changes, which are mostly on the margins, and then one regular change that happens every other year. Marriott manages the Conference Center, which is in North Bethesda. The committee may be interested to know what kind of programming is planned for FY25. But basically, the NDA itself funds the FTE that manages and operates the Conference Center, pays for some non-routine repairs and things like that. It also maintains a reserve. And occasionally, when it's in the red, the county will step in. And if there's any surpluses, those are deposited into the county. I did receive some additional information from Mr. Gene Smith's team about some special appropriations during COVID. We noted the amount that was distributed in 2020, but there was also money during 5.9 in total appropriated for COVID, and that's the full amount will be recouped this year. The main thing with this budget is that every other year they has to conduct an audit. FY25 is an off year, and so what the $50,000 for the audit that was included last year is not included this year. That's the main change, other than the cost for existing personnel. And you have some additional information about, how much their ground lease and profit they're generating, if there's any additional questions about that, but council staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Mr. Smith, any comments?
No? Nope, it's nothing to add.
Okay, this was very simple, straightforward. Does anybody from the committee has any questions? Councilmember Sells.
I just had a quick question about the table 1 on page 3. Just showed the revenue was significantly lower and than last fiscal year, and just wanted to. Table 1 on page 3.
Thank you. Gene Smith with the Montgomery County Business Center. Are you speaking about fiscal 24? The 1.7 million that's currently in there?
Yes,
So that's the year-to-date total. We still have 4 more months in fiscal 24. And rather than estimating what those might be, we just provided council staff with the year-to-date total. So I think the current estimate is it will likely exceed what we received in fiscal 23, well above 2 million.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Glass.
Thank you for this update. Want to pair this conversation with the one we had last week, in which we learned from Visit Montgomery that the North Bethesda area, the same area as the Visitors Conference Center, accounts for nearly a quarter of all visitor dollars spent in Montgomery County. And so we can clearly understand why, and it certainly serves an important role in the county, and particularly in that zip code. The question I have is about the use of the facility. I haven't seen any information regarding the rentals. How many are local rentals, which we go to at least once a week, if not more, and then other rentals that might be regional or national in nature, just to get a better understanding of who's utilizing that space.
Thank you, Mr. Glass, for the question. I do not have that data in front of me right now, but I'm happy to provide to the committee as a follow-up.
I think it's just illuminative, right?
We agree.
Great. And I think that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And with that, I think the committee agrees with the county executive's recommendation. Thank you so much for all your work. Next, we have the Capital Improvement Program CIP on Burtonsville Crossings. Mr. Ali.
Thank you. This was a CIP item that was transmitted as part of the April 16th amendments to the recommended FY25 to FY30 CIP. Basically, as a result of 2 state bills, or there were 2 state bills that were approved last year to provide funding for the Burtonsville Crossing Shopping Center renovations that are being undertaken currently, and so this year they authorized $2 million more, and that's what this item reflects, the addition of state aid. And so staff recommends approval, and you can just see a list of some of the things on page 1 and 2 of the things that the money is being used for, but it's all towards the same effort, and it should complete by the end of this fiscal year.
That's very exciting news. We all want to make sure this area is successful. Does the committee have any questions? Councilmember Sells.
So are all of the retailers accounted for in the shopping center? Is it fully leased?
I'm not sure. I can double check on that, but I
Okay.
believe that they're still leasing up some of the pads.
Okay.
But I can follow up and confirm that.
Yes, only because when we met with Ms. Groff last week, we just talked about the different centers across the county and which ones were benefiting from more visitors, and wanted to ensure we're thinking very creatively about the tenants that we're attracting and advertising to. We want to ensure that every corner of the county is still a destination, and we're thinking creatively. So I don't know who that would.
It's the Edens Development Group, actually, and so I can find some more
Yes, okay.
information about their specific plans, but they have put some
Yes,
things out in the
okay.
press updating everybody, and they have a good reputation in the county. They actually recently conducted the update of the Cabin John Shopping Center as well, so I think it's
Yes.
maybe a
good.
similar
Okay.
spirit.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. Okay.
They are amazing. They have done spectacular work in Virginia. When I was in the planning board, we went to see, I think it's called the Mosaic property that they had over there. And then after that, that motivated us to push for them to start investing in Burtonsville. And that was like 6 years ago. So I'm happy that we're at this stage.
Seeing the results.
Yes, Councilmember Glass.
Thank you. I just want to say I was at the groundbreaking a year or two ago. I was at the ribbon cutting for the market that's there. There are a lot of exciting things that are coming. A number of the retailers are local, which makes it even better. But particularly, I just want to say thank you to the District 14 team that brought this money back, Senator Zucker, Delegates Kaiser, Queen, Mercu North, and former Delegate Ludke. This was done because of them, and also the community, the Build a Better Burtonsville organization. We are building a better Burtonsville.
And with those beautiful words, I think we approve. Thank you so much for your help. And now the last item on today's agenda is very exciting. Permitting services and a follow-up regarding a restaurant effort to streamline. And I see HHS and DPS here. As they approach, Mr. Ali, would you like to kick us off, please?
Sure. I'll just run through the staff packet, which is somewhat brief. Basically, the background within the ECON committee is that the most recent work session was held on March 11th about this issue, and so you requested a follow-up, which this is basically that follow-up, and that March meeting was actually a follow-up to a December meeting, and I know this conversation has been ongoing. So, you know, there was a proposal at one point to use DPS funds to pay for the position for plan review at HHS, and that was not deemed viable, but sort of created the basis for the approach moving forward. I think there's been a lot of information and a lot of discussions happening in a relatively short period of time, so there may be some clarity that is needed, and hopefully the executive staff here today can provide that clarity about what the proposal is, so I'll just turn it over to them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ali. Mr. Ken Hartman, would you like to proceed?
Thank you so much, Chair Founding Gonzalez. For the record, my name is Ken Hartman Espada, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. Pleased to have worked with the committee on this for many months now, and I'm happy to report that we now have a draft delegation of authority memo that the county attorney has drafted. We've consulted with not only HHS leadership, but DPS leadership, OMB, and finance to make sure that all the necessary pieces were in place. The decision memo, which will come from the Dr. James Bridgers to the CAO, it has been drafted, and it will be the purpose of the memo will be to delegate from HHS to DPS the authority to administer plan review and approval responsibilities as set forth in County Code Section 15-11. DPS will be responsible for collecting the subject plan review fees contemplated by County Code Section 1512. HHS then will provide administrative support to DPS for the review and inspections, which traditionally fall within HHS's authority. HHS personnel costs related to these services will be charged as appropriate to the DPS Enterprise Fund for payment. Nothing in the delegation is intended to limit or change any of the authority by HHS to administer the licensing requirements. They have a responsibility to us and to our public to ensure public health is well served. So all work will continue to be done under supervision of the HHS director, subject to the director's approval, and of course Dr. Ashford and her team. The delegation will take effect no later than July 1st of this year, and will have a sunset date of June 30th, 2025, which is when we evaluate, do we continue, are there other changes we should be contemplating? And any extension of the delegation must be approved by the CAO. So I'm happy to report that.
And what about the discussion on the two, because we want to have two positions. This needs to be successful from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So this delegation allows for the staff, and there are a number of staff who are already dividing their time up, providing these services along with everything else that L&R does. It will allow that time to be charged to the DPS Enterprise Fund. It also will allow for the position that's proposed in the county executive's budget, which is intended to help applicants put together their applications, to answer questions, to be reimbursed by the Enterprise Fund, and would be able to support the committee's desire that you expressed last time for an additional dedicated plan review position to be funded from the Enterprise Fund.
There will be two full-time positions to review those plans.
As I understand it, it would cover the position the county executive has recommended, and would cover, should the council decide, that additional position to be funded by, so long as it does these duties.
And I'm pushing for this to make it crystal clear here, because as you know, the reason why we are in this situation is because restaurants have been struggling to get those permits approved because there hasn't been enough staff to review them. So we need to make sure that we have the people to make sure that restaurants open on time. Otherwise, we're not doing ourselves a favor. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. I just have some clarifying questions. So just to clarify, the two positions, so they're both HHS positions, and one is currently in the budget request. Have we added the second one into the HHS budget request?
I think we need to add it. We need to make sure it's clear we need two positions. Otherwise, we don't have enough. I mean, that has been the plea that we have received from HHS, that we don't have enough folks. So that has to be.
Right. So in this packet, we don't have that discussion in this packet. And not only is this our last committee session, but it is the council's last committee session of the budget, right? So if that's the intention, we need to do that. We need to have that action now. So that's one, and we can talk about that. I do have another question, and that's about so I think there's 2 points about this negotiation or relationship or MOU, whatever it is, right? One was that we don't have enough staff. And if that's the only reason, then just adding 2 staff should do it. But there is this communication and relationship between HHS and DPS. And I just need to have that clarified as to how does HHS is still supervising and directing the staff. What role does DPS have in the communication and oversight of the individuals and oversight might be way too strong of a word, but how does DPS interface with these two employees differently than what they currently do now?
And I can start, and Director Sabakan can add value. The intent is that for the customer, you're coming in the door, you're putting in your applications, you're paying your fees in one place. There is and Director Sabakan can talk about the system they have for seeing how applications flow through the process from start to finish, and something that. I'll turn it to him to answer, but it's something that we, as well as you, would want to see, that there is a flow, and when it gets to the health plan inspectors, that there is a expectation from the customer that there is a turnaround within a reasonable time.
Okay.
Good afternoon. This is Rabia Sabakan, Director DPS. As Mr. Hartman pointed out, the effect will be a streamlined experience for our customers. They will only have to pay. They won't have to go twice in payment of those fees. That's why we stress that in the delegation of authority, so the customer will go make a single point of payment at the front end when they submit applications. As far as oversight, DPS remains the overseer of the process. So. We will essentially do the same thing with any outside agency or department that's linked into the permitting process based on the scope of work. We will just continue to to ensure that the routing is done accordingly. Probably the biggest difference is making sure that as far as the fees, that everything lines up appropriately. Particularly with the chargeback. Being done at a certain point of the year and back to HHS.
Okay, thank you. And I would assume there's, the transition might have some fits and starts, but I think that if we look at this, certainly 6 months, a year from now, let's review whether the efficiencies that we expected are clear. And if not, there might, what needs to change in that regard, because I know that there will be a transition. We talked the last time that, there are cultural differences between DPS and HHS in that regard. And so we just want to make sure there's a smooth transition. But we do need to talk about the money, so thank you.
Great comments. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you for those questions, Councilmember Balcom. I remember when this idea was first broached, and appreciate the chair for leading this work. But as I recall, it was presented as revenue neutral. Was that not a correct recollection, that it was shifting FTEs from one department to the other?
In this proposal that we're looking at in front of us, we are not proposing to increase fees. So the fees that are being charged today are the fees that are going to be charged later. I think there is a fund balance in the DPS enterprise fund. Over time, as we do with all of our fees, we'll be assessing the different functions and the fees associated with them. But at this point in time, we're not asking you to approve a change in the fee. It is revenue neutral for the general fund because it takes the burden of and putting these positions on the competition list, takes them out of that, puts them in a place where we know there's a fund balance to support the activity.
So hone in on that last point you raised again. It is revenue neutral for the general fund, but finish that sentence.
The DPS and directors, I'll turn to Director Sabakan also, because I know that that's been a conversation with DPS in the budget, which is their fund balance that the enterprise fund is carrying.
Can I intervene? It's not just general neutral. We are taking money that is not going to go to the general fund, and we're going to charge the enterprise. We're saving money because we're using that DPS enterprise for these positions.
Well, but I'm asking this question because it was presented as revenue neutral, and what I heard at the beginning of this conversation is that we need to add money to the budget to hire another person. So help me reconcile what we're talking about.
We will be adding money to the.
Well, but Councilmember Balcom, isn't that what you were referring to?
So we need to add an FTE to the enterprise fund.
Enterprise.
May I provide a little
Yes.
clarity here? And I
Yes,
apologize.
that would be great.
Sorry.
No, please.
Just because I wanted to clarify exactly what the committee's action, I think, should be potentially, which is change the funding source of the county executive's recommended position, DHHS, for education around plan review to DPS. So that's the first
Exactly.
action.
Exactly.
Is it revenue neutral? Sort of. I would just say that technically that position is associated with fee revenue, which offsets the cost. Whether that offsets all of the cost, we don't know. So there's, I would
That's
say
the
that
enterprise fund,
offset
right?
may not be captured. The other thing that you would want to do based on the discussion would be add one more plan review to HHS and then change the funding source to the enterprise fund.
Right, because if it was the enterprise fund, we don't necessarily need to add that personnel or get involved, which is what, right, exactly. So it was the call for adding an FTE, which got me questioning which fund we were talking about. So back to the point, an FTE will need to be hired.
Yes.
We do not have to make that call because it is part of the enterprise fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think technically there's the intermediate step of adding it to the general
We're
fund and
calling
then
lots of
changing the funding
lifelines here,
source.
yes.
Yes.
You'd still need to recognize it within the DPS fund.
Absolutely. It
Right,
is
so
still
you'd
money in
add
the budget,
money there,
yes.
you'd add the FT there, and it'd be taken care of there, but it would
Correct.
not hit the general fund.
And making it absolutely clear that we do want that extra full-time person taking a look at this.
Understood. Thank you.
So we are all right, just in different ways.
Absolutely.
Was there anything else that we missed here? I see your mic on.
Oh, is it?
Oh.
Well, in all, honesty, if you recall, what really precipitated all of this, yes, it was, we realized the HHS, shortage on personnel, which, we've rectified. From an accountability standpoint, I have to admit, as you recall, Chair, we also had some responsibility, DPS that is, to ensure that, proper outreach and education was provided. And so just to update, because that's really the objective here, is to make sure that our restaurant sector, improves the ability to navigate our permitting process, get their permit issuance, and is allowed to, start their business in a more efficient and faster manner. So we will be completing our recipe for success update. June is our date. I am all on that, making sure that happens, and I'm very confident that we're gonna see through both that and the additional resources. To go point to Councilmember Balcom's concerns, I'm very confident that we're going to see, quicker timelines on our restaurant reviews and food service, because it's more than just the restaurants over the coming year. So we're going to be honing in and locked in on those permit types and evaluating the data, and looking forward to sharing that information with the committee.
Excellent. I will say, as we stated in the previous work session, let's make sure that HHS committee knows exactly what we're doing, please. And with that, I see. Oh, go ahead, Mr.
Yes, just to confirm, May 7th is the HHS full council work session.
So we're going to
the
bring it
record.
up there in
Yes.
front of the full council.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Anything else, Mr. Herman?
Thank you for working with us on this one.
No, thank you for being open-minded and moving us forward. We're all evolving, and hopefully this will work out. If it doesn't, then we'll rectify. Well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.